What's up, y'all? My name is Dan. So, in the past few weeks, Virgin Australia announced that they would begin a codeshare agreement with United Airlines. It was quite an unexpected move because they had a codeshare agreement with Delta, but now Virgin is ditching Delta for United. This is great news for Virgin and United. Bad news for Delta. United gets to enter deeper into the Australian market and gets to restore their Australian flights that are currently suspended, and Virgin gets to restore connections to North America that they lost when they retired the long-haul fleet and thus ended their US flights. Virgin Australia used to fly to Los Angeles from Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane with the 777-300ER before the pandemic. Virgin supported the US flights by having a closure agreement with Delta Airlines. Connections were possible at LAX with Delta. Passengers could connect onto domestic and Latin American flights with Delta, but when the pandemic happened, Virgin entered administration, the long-haul fleet was retired, and their US flights ended. But now Delta only has one destination in Australia, that's Sydney. But as Australia begins to kind of reopen, Virgin probably realized that Delta isn't as good of a closure partner since they only got one flight between the US and Australia. Their connections are even more limited now, especially since they don't seem to want to bring back their long-haul flights in the near future. So here's where United comes into the picture, with 5 routes between the US before the pandemic began. Unlike Delta, United flies into more airports. They fly from LAX as well as San Francisco into both Melbourne and Sydney, as well as from Houston to Sydney. But United basically only carries traffic into Melbourne and Sydney from the US. There aren't any possible connections with no partners in Australia. The way United gets deeper into Australia is probably with Air New Zealand, with flights from Auckland to Los Angeles, San Francisco, Houston, Chicago, and Honolulu. They fly passengers into Auckland and transfer them onto 9 Australian destinations. But that's still not nearly as many destinations compared to what Virgin offers from their hubs. With Virgin, United can go deeper into Australia than they've ever gone, allowing connections into a lot more Australian cities from Sydney and Melbourne, into cities like Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth, and others. This way, they can maybe attract more Australian passengers that will want to fly into the US. Virgin Australia passengers will also get to access a lot of United's domestic and Latin American destinations by connecting at LAX, San Francisco, and Houston, offering more connections than Delta did. You got a lot of local demand and connections at Los Angeles with domestic flights and flights to Latin America. You also got San Francisco, which has a different set of connections that you can't have at LAX. And while Houston doesn't have a lot of local demand, it offers a lot of connections into the East Coast and Latin America that Delta doesn't have, unless you want to transfer twice, which most people don't want to. All of this may even allow them to add more routes between the US and Australia, such as San Francisco and Los Angeles to Brisbane, which actually offers more connections that Sydney and Melbourne don't have. I also see the possibility in maybe a few years to have a second route from Houston, such as Melbourne. But is there a possibility that Virgin Australia would join Star Alliance? I honestly don't think so. I think they'll stay a United partner without joining the alliance, kinda like they did with Delta without joining SkyTeam. Also, is this gonna hurt Air New Zealand? I don't think so. It may affect them a little bit, since a lot of passengers transfer to Auckland when flying between the US and Australia. I don't know the statistic, but I still think they're gonna keep flying a lot of these connecting passengers, assuming restrictions are lifted. I honestly think this is mainly going to attract passengers that are already loyal to Virgin Australia. The one airline I think is gonna be hurt by this is Delta. They're going to have to figure out a way to support the Los Angeles to Sydney flight without having any connections into Australia. Basically, they're stuck with only local demand into Sydney. But I really wonder, how is this gonna go for them? I hope they don't pull out of Australia completely, but I think they can pull it off. I do think there's enough market for it. If United could do it, I think Delta probably can as well. I think this is gonna go well for United and Virgin Australia. Not sure about Delta, but I honestly think they'll be fine. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If y'all got any comments, questions, criticisms, anything, y'all can leave a comment. That's all I got to say, and I'll see you later.